thing I hate most about advertising is that it attracts all the bright, creative, and ambitious young people. That's something Banksy once said, and it's one of the places where he and I disagree. The thing I love most about advertising is that it attracts all the bright, creative, and ambitious young people. Creativity and imagination, ambition, it's what makes coming to work every day inspiring. And the one thing I've found is that no matter what the challenge, no matter how difficult the client brief, that if you give someone bright, creative, and ambitious a chance to solve a problem, and maybe a couple of days to think about it, you'll be presented with at least 3 answers, one of which, maybe 2, will be kind of perfect. But let's not talk about marketing for a few minutes. Let's talk about the world. The world. I don't need to tell you that we are going through a period of uncertainty. Leadership in the US and Brexit are on everybody's minds. North Korea is a wild card. In a recent Pew Research poll, respondents around the globe still see ISIS as one of the top threats facing the globe. A lot of us right now are concerned about the direction of human rights, the rights of women, of transgender people, of immigrants, of children. And almost all of us are worried about climate change and resource scarcity. And we're concerned about the world that will evolve from all this. I'm not trying to depress you, but I am talking about the reality that we're all facing and what's on our collective minds and the minds of our clients. A recent Deloitte survey found that of millennials living in developed countries, 1/3 believe that their country's overall social and political situation will improve. What that means is that 2/3 are pessimistic about their future. Only 43% of Gen Z, the next generation after millennials, expect to be happier than their parents. It's an incredibly sobering report, and it's clear that there's a lot of concern out there. Uncertainty is having an effect. The turbulence of our times is making it hard for people to be optimistic. But it's interesting because the report also says this. Their concerns suggest that this is the ideal time for business leaders to prove themselves as agents of positive change. So there is hope. And it's possible the workplace and business in general may play a massive role in how we manage and envision the future. The way I see it, all of us in this room are in the business of leading culture, not following it. We discover truths long before they become popular, and we amplify those truths. Yes, we act out the desires of our clients, but we filter those through data, knowledge, and our own desires. And so this puts us in an incredibly powerful position. A position where we get to decide how we want things to shake out and where we want things to go. I've always been incredibly motivated by this quote from Bill Bernbach. All of us who professionally use the mass media are the shapers of society. We can vulgarize that society, we can brutalize it, or we can help lift it to a higher level. We just have to decide what that higher level is. We've all heard the term corporate social responsibility, and it's not just a buzzword anymore. Now it's a basic tenet of business behavior. Businesses are beginning to analyze themselves many different ways now. For example, they're now looking at environmental, social, and governance impacts. They're not just thinking about return on investment, they're thinking about return on doing good. There's even an acronym, that's a hard word to say, for that. Return on doing good. We're now seeing the emergence of any number of indexes that track corporate social responsibility. The New York Times reported big investors like pension funds and others have publicly declared that they now consider environmental, social, and governance issues to be key metrics of their investment decisions. To pass muster, companies seeking their favour must show a proven track record of responsible stewardship in all 3 categories. So we can assume then that very soon companies who take corporate social responsibility seriously will be eating the lunches of those who don't. So where do we in this room fit in? Well, let's get back to what Birnbach said. All of us who professionally use the mass media are the shapers of society. We can vulgarize that society, we can brutalize it, or we can help lift it onto a higher level. I think the work we do can truly shape the world we want. We've managed to attract all the bright, creative, and ambitious people, sorry, Banksy, and we've always led culture. So we in this room are in an incredibly unique position. We're not only able to determine where we want things to go, but we're able to point the world and our clients in this direction. And we do all this type of good by doing good work. And the way we do this good work is through creativity. This means trying new things, breaking new ground, getting scrappy, smart, and inventing things. Things that may not look like advertising, but in fact are advertising. Advertising that does good. And if we do it right, we'll actually make things that are truly good. Here's an example of that, and it comes from right here in India. You may know Quality Dairy. They're one of the fastest growing dairy brands here, and they're concerned about health. And if you're concerned about health, you can, of course, make a healthful product. You can even fortify the product with vitamins and minerals so that people get better nutrition. But Quality wanted to do even more. They wanted to make a gigantic difference in the quality of people's lives, specifically children.
In India, we are facing a huge problem of vitamin D deficiency and its subsequent crisis as far as the deficiencies leading on to diseases.
Fortified milk and vegetable oils provide you with 1/3 of our daily requirement of vitamin D. We need to expose ourselves to sun for about 15 to 20 minutes. Exposure to sun between 11 a.m. and 1 p.m. provides you with significantly higher synthesis of vitamin D.
We talk of fortification of food, so what's equally important is to fortify our daily routine with more exposure to sunlight.
The concept that by shifting your assembly, which most schools have, to around noon time can address vitamin D deficiencies is a very powerful concept.
Fits into the school schedule without making much effort.
So we made the changes in the timetable accordingly.
Along with other supplements, I prescribe noon assembly to my children and I strongly recommend it to the school authorities also.
FSSAI launched a nationwide campaign.
This unique initiative urges schools to shift their morning assembly to noon time. The noon assembly initiative has seen increasing participation. More than 35,000 students.
So I want to point out one thing. We didn't make a television commercial or print ads telling kids to get more sunlight. What we did was look at the problem and how we could address it, how we could make something lasting, something effective, how we could make something that not only says Quality Dairy cares about the kids that drink their milk, but demonstrates it. What this took was a certain kind of boundless imagination. We're programmed to make ads that look a certain way. And this was an advertisement, make no mistake, but it was an ad that had a very different goal. Now think about that for a second. When was the last time that a film you made literally was nutritional? Over 50 schools joined the effort, another 500 pledged to participate, over 40,000 children joined in, and that meant more than 20 million extra minutes of sunshine. We're not just feeding minds here. The other thing we're doing is making a very large impression about quality dairy. Because it isn't a program focused on selling milk, it's a program focused on selling the very ethos of the company, which is vitamins, minerals, and an incredible amount of care about kids. You can imagine the impression this might make on parents who are choosing which milk to buy for their young ones. And so this works. It really works well, and it primes our clients to want to do this kind of thing again. So we've started something, we hope, something that can grow in many different ways and do many different kinds of good. At the very core of this is a creative act that meant coming at the problem differently and asking questions and recognizing a need. And if you can do that, you can do just about anything. A lot of times what's required is simply seeing the problem and then wondering, how can you help? Specifically, where your client might help. And you'd be surprised. We often shrug our shoulders and say, yeah, but we're just marketers. But the truth is, believe it or not, we have extraordinary power. Here's another example of that. This is something our New York office did for MGM Resorts International. In the United States, Las Vegas is known as the wedding capital of the world. And MGM wanted more people to come to Las Vegas. And in order to do that, we helped them shift the narrative around what a wedding could be.
Love songs, I was just like, that's just not part of something I get to be a part of.
I didn't feel comfortable dancing to that kind of music with those lyrics.
You know, non-queer people do take music sort of for granted and feel like they automatically own the song.
I'm mad about the girl.
Popular stars are contributing to a groundbreaking new album. Listen to this, it's called
Universal Love, a new album produced by MGM Resorts.
The singers are doing it by switching pronouns.
She's Funny That Way was reimagined to He's Funny That Way, with Dylan himself singing lines like, I got a man crazy for me.
He's funny that way. I'm mad about the girl. I love him. My guy. I need a woman to love me. Don't you understand, baby? I need a woman to love.
Kesha's music video you see here shows her on a journey to Las Vegas to officiate a same-sex wedding at the Bellagio.
I think if you look at the history of music, music's always been about changing culture.
I think, it opens a lot of doors.
We're actually talking about human rights here. Who has access to things that others take for granted? And we're opening opportunities for everyone. And again, don't get me wrong, this is advertising, but it works in a very different way. Not only did we do something that shifted things for people, but MGM was noticed for it in the trades, in the news, by artists, by everyone. And they were noticed quite a lot. More than they might have been noticed with traditional advertising and a traditional advertising budget. So there's something else I want to mention here. Not only are we doing good, not only are we doing good work, but we're doing effective work. This is important because it helps you make the argument for these kinds of efforts when you're talking to your clients. One of our agencies, Fitzco, in Atlanta, Georgia, in the United States, went on exactly this kind of journey with their client, Checkers. Checkers is a hamburger chain, a little less known than McDonald's or Burger King, but no less significant in the community. In fact, when we started working on it, we discovered that Checkers had a lot more in common with the community than the other chains, and so we decided to start a movement.
Coming from the inner city, you always felt like somewhat of an underdog. Let's make that a good thing. When I was 13 years old, I worked at a car wash. It was right next to McDonald's. Across the intersection was Checkers. I made $30 a day. I went to Checkers. "20 years later, I'm in a financial position where whatever I want to have, I can have it without a doubt. I want Checkers.
From the corner of 183rd Street and 27th Avenue at Checkers, we got Rick Ross for the Buy Back the Block movement.
What made me come back and buy Checkers was providing jobs, investing back into the community. We could come back and say, a piece of this is ours. And that's what means most to me, so, boss.
It's time to buy back the block. Buy back the block. Talking one brick at a time. I sold a few records. I bought me a Checkers.
We thought about having good energy, good food, good vibes.
So this is big thinking that starts small, or should I say local. Don't be afraid of trying to make a lasting global impact by doing something on a smaller scale. Even simply changing a single corner in a single city. You'll be surprised how fast and how far it radiates outward. Our office in New York had a chance this year to make a big impact, and they did it using a very small population.
Hi, my name is Owen, and I'm 9.5 years old.
Owen is, in some ways, a completely typical 9.5-year-old, and in other ways, he's completely, remarkable. We think he's, the complete package. Owen was born with an extremely rare genetic disorder called Escobar syndrome. He's had 33 surgeries to date. Owen is in a wheelchair for long distances. There's certain things that just aren't a right fit for him.
And I love video games, my friends, my family, again, video games. It's pretty challenging if I need to use both thumbsticks and the D-pad at the exact same time.
With the Xbox Adaptive Controller, we wanted to address these problems. We want everybody to be able to play games, regardless of their skill level or their physical abilities.
What I like about the Adaptive Controller is no matter how your body is or how fast you are, you can play.
He gets to play with all of his friends when he might not necessarily be able to go outside and play with them. It's important to us. It's important to him.
Yeah, it's a really good thing to have in this world now. Because now everyone can play.
When everybody plays, we all win. The commercials for this campaign were Microsoft's most recognized Super Bowl ads ever. They not only reframed the problem, but they reframed the company itself. We saw a significant uptick in emotional brand perception. Like, love, people like me, trust, and empower. And yes, they were commercials, but they were commercials that weren't necessarily selling a product. They were selling a point of view about humanity, inclusion, possibility. And when you do that, like the commercials say, we all win. I tell you all of this because it matters. We love coming to work, especially when it's work that we can feel good about in every way. But I also tell you this because it's very possible that this kind of thinking is necessary. Necessary for the survival of our clients, necessary for the survival of our industry. And here's why. Millennials. They're changing everything. They're reshaping our industries, they're changing our workplace, they're reshaping the platforms upon which we communicate, and it's very possible they're even going to reshape our intent. 91% of millennials would switch brands to one associated with a cause. That's more than 9 out of 10, in other words. If you're not thinking about ways you're helping the world, there's a really good chance your product or service is going to be overlooked for one that is. There's a shift underway. 86% of female millennials would seek out responsible products wherever possible. 81% of millennials expect their brands to make a public commitment to good corporate citizenship. These are the kind of things that are important to be thinking about and telling your clients. We've always wanted to do good work, but we also need to be thinking about how that work can do good. And the other thing to point out is that we cannot rely on tried and true efforts. Only 11% of millennials see advertising as effective. And I kind of see that as great news for everyone in this room and for our clients, because it allows us to sharpen our creative claws and really dig into something. One of the things that I want to point out is that all of the case studies I showed you are for paying clients with a need for marketing. They weren't pro bono. I'm not knocking pro bono in any way, but I think it's a critical part of our own social missions. But my point is that at least in those examples, we were answering briefs, or we have relationships with clients that allowed us to suggest great ideas. And so a trusted relationship is critical to doing good work. Clients need to know that you have their best interests at heart, that you're thinking about these problems as business problems and ways to advance their needs. Also critical to doing good work is having good intent. The world is always looking for ways to help, and the world appreciates those who are making an effort. Don't shy away from this when approaching problems for clients. Think about the world and what we might need. Examine your own issues and values. What's worrying you? What's bothering you? What are the problems that keep you up at night? It's likely that these massive issues are a great place to start. And if you do it well, you'll not only make a difference in a few people's lives, you not only help your client, but you inspire others to do the same. This is a creative act. It's why people and creativity are so powerful, and why I'm really optimistic about the future of creativity. It's why I love having bright, creative, and ambitious young minds around me, and why I'm optimistic about the business we're all in. Because no matter what the challenge, if you give someone bright, creative, and ambitious a chance to solve a problem, and maybe a few days to think about it, you'll be presented with at least 3 solutions. Solutions like outside time at a different time of day for more vitamin D, and music for all weddings, and a chance to buy back the neighborhood. Solutions that help our clients' bottom lines, are fun to make, and win awards. Solutions that just so happen to be ads. Good work, in other words, and work that does good. Thank you.